John Cola with growingyourgreens.com to do another exciting episode for you. I'm coming at you from Shelburne, Vermont, and the reason why we're here today is actually we're at Shelburne Farms, and this is an old school estate, probably like founded in like, I don't know, the 1800s or something crazy, and it was a private estate of like some rich people, maybe the Vanderbilts or something, and now it's actually the heirs of that whole clan put this into a non-profit, so it's kind of like a park, but it's a non-profit that you could visit, check out. They have an inn that you could stay at. They actually serve food at the inn that they grew here on site. They also have a working dairy. But the reason why I'm here today is to share with you guys the fruit and vegetable farm that they have here, the market farm that they have here at Shelburne Farms. And I'm going to share with you guys, how they add fertility and bring fertility to their soil here in Vermont. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and drive into this huge estate and try to find the market farm. So now I've found the market garden here at Shelburne Farms, and here it is right here. And this is where they actually grow the food for the inn on site, and they have like, high-end, restaurant where they actually grow the food here and use it in the restaurant. That's probably one of the main ways this food is used. Another way is they have a CSA program. So local people could actually get a share and purchase, a share and get the food that was grown here. And finally, they sell at the Shelburne Farmers Market, and they sell the excess food here. So what I want to do in this episode for you guys is actually share with you guys, some of the things they're growing, the crops they're growing, how they're doing it, and also more importantly, their fertility program, because I know that's a big question for a lot of you guys is, what kind of fertilizers do you use to grow your plants? So they're using some of the best fertilizers that I think will work the best for you guys, and they're actually doing it successfully here on a large commercial scale. So in any case, let's go ahead and head into some of these hoop houses and show you guys what's growing on inside. So they have about 5 hoop houses here, and here's just one of them. They have a lot of flowers growing, so these are non-edible for cut flower arrangements. And if you're in business and selling fruits and veggies, I want to encourage you guys to grow some cut flowers, because there's a lot of money in cut flowers, and cut flowers are one of the worst, things you could buy at the store, because they're often imported and they use lots of chemicals and pesticides to grow cut flowers that are imported, and then they're shipped all the way to America. And you could easily grow them, just in a hoop house or just out in the field. And so here they have part of their market farm, and you can see they have some beautiful basil, some beautiful sunflowers here growing. Looks like they got some maybe cabbage over yonder. They're using basically just a drip irrigation, and they're enriching the soil that they're growing in. But what I want to show you guys is actually in this hoop house here. And let me tell you guys, if you live in Vermont or northeastern United States, one of the things that you got to put on your list is a hoop house. This is a hoop house. Actually, this is on a track, so this is pretty smart. They could actually roll it down to this side or that side, and this allows you to extend your short growing season here in the Northeast. Luckily, I have a nice long growing season, but the growing season here is really short, and by using a hoop house, you can grow crops even in the wintertime when it's snowing outside, when you otherwise couldn't. Now, I wouldn't be growing tomatoes in the winter, but you could still grow things like some of the brassicas and leeks, cabbage, kale, that are, more cold tolerant. And check out inside this greenhouse here. Look at this. They got rows and rows of nice large tomatoes here. And we can just walk down one of these aisles and just look at all these tomatoes here. I mean, just totally red, ripe, juicy, nice large tomatoes. And no doubt this is due to partly the variety, which they are growing a hybrid variety that's really large, but also it's the fertility in the soil, and they basically also have this mulched to retain the water. So let me see if we can go ahead and get a nice large tomato. Yeah, some of these things are huge. I think I actually want to go over like one more aisle to the cherry tomatoes and show you guys those. I mean, look at this. I mean, they're just tomatoes for days. And one of the things the manager here told me is that, he's growing these hybrid tomatoes that produce like, I don't know, 50 pounds per plant per season, versus like certain heirlooms might only grow 10 pounds. So he's really, as much as he believes in growing heirlooms and he likes eating heirlooms and the taste is better, he's really growing for quantity. And this is what happens in commercial agriculture sometimes, unfortunately, this is a business, and they got to make a business out of it, and they got to be able to grow enough food to meet the demand. And if you're growing, you know, heirlooms, you might not be able to do that. So over here you can see, you know, we got, you know, just, they've really single stemmed up very nicely, different cherry tomatoes, and, you know, up at the top growth, that's where we're really going to see a lot of tomatoes coming on, because kind of down lower, it's kind of been picked through. And what I want to do next for you guys is actually do a Brix test. So I've done Brix testing before on my show. Some of you guys may be familiar, some of you guys may not be familiar. But this is a Brix meter or a refractometer. And what the Brix meter does, it measures the total Brix, and people think of Brix as sugar content, but it's a lot more than just the sugar content. It's the sugar content combined with the protein and also the minerals that are very important. So things with the higher Brix will taste better, they're gonna have better storage attributes, and just be better for you. So let's go ahead and unfortunately, you know, if you've all tasted tomatoes out of the store and they're picked too early, they're still pink, they're not deep red, they don't taste good, they're gonna have a lower Brix. So there's a standardized chart here that is put out by International Ag Labs, and on this chart it goes over the refractive index of crop juices, and they have different vegetables and fruits on here. And we're gonna go ahead and go down to the tomatoes over here. And on tomatoes, a poor tomato will read 4 on the Brix, average tomato will read 6 on the Brix, a good tomato will read 8 on the Brix, and an excellent tomato will read 12 on the Brix. So let's go ahead and check out this specific cherry tomato. Now I do want to let you guys know that although there are standardized numbers on the Brix chart, you know, obviously some cherry tomatoes that are sweeter are going to have a little bit different range and higher than a standard large size tomato. The other thing, you want to make sure you try to get like a nice deep red tomato. So I'm going to maybe try to reach up here and get a nice red one. And we're just going to go ahead and pierce the skin and get a little bit of a juice on there. And close our little lid. And we're going to look at this through the light. All right, so that's reading about a 10. So a 10 on the list here, that's actually right between good and excellent. So these are actually quite good tomatoes. No doubt having to do with the growing practices, but also the variety. So what I really want to share with you guys in this episode is how they're fertilizing and how they're making high quality tomatoes here, because they have several different inputs. You know, a lot of them, some of them they actually produce on site, and some of them they actually import from local resources. So maybe let's go ahead over to the shed to see if we can find any bagged fertilizers that they might be using. All right, so here in the shed they have a few bagged fertilizers still hanging out here. I guess over there they got some sulfur, some Epsom salt, and actually some other kind of 4,6,4 nutrients made out of different organic plant materials and animal products. They also have this stuff right here, the bone char, and some NOFA VT custom blend organic fertilizer with no Chilean nitrate. I was also told by the farm manager that they use things like peanut meal to enrich the farm here. And now they all use these like the bag fertilizers in smaller quantities. They're not like putting a ton of this stuff out, because some of these bags of fertilizer can be quite expensive, and that's what I encourage you guys to do. Use some of the different bag products that you may think you may need, and that's actually what I do. But the majority of the nutrition shouldn't come from a bag. It should actually come from, you know, local resources. So that's what I want to do and share with you guys next. They're creating their own compost and using other local resources to even make their compost better. So let's go ahead and check that out. So we're walking on our way to check out the compost, and we've basically come across these rows and rows of different berries and berry-like crops. Oh, and check this out, man. This is really cool. Many of you guys may never have seen this. We got some raspberries here. You're saying, John, wait a second. Those aren't raspberries. They're not red. Well, these are yellow raspberries. Raspberries come in all colors. Actually, I'm growing ones that are actually like black myself. These are yellow. Let's see how they taste. Wow. That's a good raspberry. Now, I always want to encourage you guys to grow diversity. That's what they're doing here. They don't just have red raspberries. They also have yellow ones. They also have different kinds of berries. So this prevents against crop failure. Maybe something won't produce this year, but another color will. and they have all different kinds of different vegetables and fruiting summer crops here growing at the same time to find out which ones will do the best, and also be able to serve them to the customers here at the inn and the CSA customers, as well as at the local farmers market. Let's go ahead and head out and check out the compost. So now we're in the area that they do all the composting here at the farm, and you guys can see they have like just a large pile of the wood chips. Now, it's quite unfortunate that they usually add the wood chips to the food waste, so they got the carbons and the nitrogens that break down and form the compost, and that they actually don't really use the compost of the wood chips directly. So what I would recommend is actually composting wood chips, since they have so much space, is to just lay them down and let them rot for a couple, 3 years. And then after about 3 years, you're gonna wanna, take out the rich black soil that it creates. Of course, you're gonna wanna add some rock dust and some mycorrhizal spores, maybe some mushrooms in with the wood chips to help it break down further. And that, in my opinion, is some of the best compost you can get, which is the, cold sourced or cold processed without heat, fungal dominated rich wood chip compost. But what they're doing here is they take some of the wood chips from different tree trimming on site, because this property is huge, and they mix it with some of the food scraps, and evidently some of the food scraps still have some foods in there, because you can see all the seagulls there. So let's go ahead and go over to the compost and show you guys what they're composting. So this is their compost, and for the most part, what they're composting is all the waste from the inn that is preparing the food here. So they got not only the vegetable and fruit waste and whatnot, but they also have things like pieces of bone and all this stuff. So they're composting animal products and vegetable products. I'm not a big fan of composting animal products myself, but they add it in with the wood chips, and they turn it every once in a while. Now, this is like normal composting procedure, but the thing they're doing special is actually over in their finished pile. It's over there. Let me go ahead and show you guys the finished pile and show you the difference, and also let you guys know what they're adding to make their compost much, much better than just simply making compost. So this is the finished compost pile, and this was already finished earlier in the season. They got it covered so it doesn't all blow away. And on the bottom here, you can see the finished compost. And this stuff is pretty good quality, but you'll notice this is a lot lighter in color than the compost that's still working that I just showed you guys. And that's because they're adding a special ingredient that I encourage all my viewers and all you guys that make compost to add this ingredient to your compost, because it will make your compost work better. And what that is, that's the rock dust. So you want to add about 20 pounds of rock dust per 1 cubic yard of uncomposted material. And you want to do this before it actually starts heating up. So do it as you're making your compost. Add the rock dust in, because the rock dust will actually give a food source for the microbes, and they're going to go crazy and digest your compost quicker. Plus, in the end, you're going to have the minerals of the rock dust more bioavailable for the plants when you put it in, and your compost is already going to be pre-inoculated with the rock dust. So they get a lot of rock dust. Half of it goes into the compost, and half of it just gets spread directly into the fields to grow some healthy crops. So I guess the next thing I want to do is actually want to take you up to one of the fields to show you guys how beautiful the vegetables look here. So now I want to share with you guys another area of the garden, and because they have so much space, they could just grow in certain areas and leave certain areas fallow. And actually up top here they planted cover crops, which is another way they add fertility to the soil. And surely if I had a lot of land, I would grow cover crops, but because I live in a standard American tract home, I don't have a lot of space, so I just want to have the most nutrient rich soil, and I don't tend to do any cover crops, because if I'm growing cover crops, that's space that I'm now taking away from food crops. So as you guys can see, this is just amazing. There's rows and rows of different kinds of vegetables and even flowers. So let's actually go up in there and show you guys some of my favorite vegetables to grow in the summer. So two of my favorite crops that they're growing here that's you don't often see are, number one, these guys. These are known as the ground cherries, and it might look like a tomatillo to you because it's in a little wrapper, but it's not a tomatillo, it's related. And to get these ripe guys, you're not going to look on the plant, you're going to actually look down on the ground, and they actually fall down when they're completely ripe. And the husk usually turns like a little bit brown or tan instead of green, and then you could reveal the little fruit inside. And ultimately, this should be a little bit more yellow, so let me see if I could get one of these guys that's like more yellow in here. All right, here we go. So there's one that's halfway decent. They remind you a little bit of a tomatillo, but they're actually quite sweet. And I recommend these guys because just look at this. There's so many different fruits on here. This is so bountiful and productive, and they're quite good. This I consider nature's candy, you know, pre-wrapped for you. Another thing I like is just right next door here, they're getting some PM or powdery mildew on it. And these are the lemon cucumbers. So it looks like sometimes they let them get a little bit too big. And I wouldn't actually eat these when they're this big. What I would do is juice them because they're quite good juiced. So they've just been pulling them aside, putting them aside, and they're just kind of wasting them. I think they should, you know, I don't know, give them away to somebody for juice or something. But what you want to do is you want to harvest them when they're young and baby. Like this. So here's the mature one, better juice. Here's one really good for eating. It's a little bit dirty, so I'm going to go ahead and wipe it off on my shirt. But the reason why I like these lemon cucumbers is because a lot of you guys maybe never heard of them before. Unlike the regular standard Marketmore or large cucumbers with the green skin that taste kind of bitter, these guys have no bitter flavor on the skin. And I really like that a lot because I love to eat my cucumber skin. Crunchy like an apple. Not quite as sweet as an apple, but definitely better than other cucumbers. It's another summer crop that I personally like to grow a lot is actually these guys right here. It's peppers, and they have lots of peppers growing, different varieties. And I like peppers more than I like tomatoes, and it looks like they're doing quite well here. Now, in my opinion, peppers are more nutritionally dense than tomatoes, as well as, especially if you're growing your own food, peppers in general cost more than tomatoes if you had to buy them. So I want to always encourage you guys to grow what is expensive to buy. You know, I've seen organic peppers sometimes as much as like $8.99, $9 a pound, and tomatoes are usually hovering around $3 a pound. And so yet another reason to buy the peppers. Also, I find that the peppers store better for longer, you know, into the winter, whereas tomatoes tend to rot a lot quicker. Plus, I love my dried peppers. Now, besides the peppers, I want to show you guys over this side. You know, they got a whole row of flowers. And these are for cut flowers, right? So they're pretty, you know, they're not edible, but I want to show you guys this right down here. You know, this is how they're keeping their flowers erect. Now, if you have problems with keeping your flowers erect, you might want to use something like this. This is basically just the plastic fencing that they put some stakes up. And this basically allows the flowers to stand up and out of the way instead of fall over. This could also be a very useful technique for growing something like peppers that you want to stand up instead of them having to fall over. Really a cheap, inexpensive, simple solution to a common problem. Now the other thing they're doing here is you can see they got this black plastic down on the ground, and they do that because this allows them to lengthen their growing season. So because it gets, you know, cool here and doesn't warm up too quickly in the springtime, putting the black plastic down will allow them to heat the soil up a little bit sooner so that they can be growing that much sooner. Also, it helps with moisture retention because the drip irrigation is actually below the plastic, so that it's gonna, you know, hold more water. So yes, I think this can work in a system like this, especially with the row crops. Looks like it's doing great. I guess the last thing I'd like to do is actually go over to one more area of the garden where they're growing mostly leafy greens. All right, so now we're in another area of the farm, and if you guys could check this out, they got like little hoops over their beds, over the rows, and this will keep the bugs out. So a lot of times I get emails, John, how do I keep the bugs out? Well, just put like some remade fabric with some steel support structures and just enclose everything so that the bugs can't get your stuff. Behind that, they have other crops actually that are growing really nicely, and I really like here that they're just growing more than just the standard green lettuce or green vegetables. They got you know, red lettuces and you know, different kinds of red beets that are like, you know, red stemmed and charred, and they have a whole spectrum of different kinds of leafy green vegetables growing. And I want to encourage you guys to grow a variety of the leafy green vegetables. Now, one of the coolest plants they're growing is actually, you can't see, but it's way back there. It's actually known as the Brussels sprouts, and those they'll be harvesting actually through December, through Christmas Day, even if there is snow, because it is an established plant, and if it doesn't get too cold, the plant will survive. And actually, with the cold temperatures, the Brussels sprouts, as well as the leaves, which are edible, get a lot sweeter and they're a lot more delicious to eat. So no matter what time of year it is, depending on where you live, you always want to have something growing for the next season and for things coming up. So they have even new plant starts in their greenhouse that they're starting now to plant out here within the next few weeks. The next thing I want to do is actually I want to go ahead and interview Josh, the farm manager here, to talk about more about his fertility programs and some of the benefits he's had from using the stuff like the rock dust. So now we're here with Josh Carter, the market garden manager here at Shelburne Farms, and we're just going to go ahead and ask him some questions regarding his fertility program, because as you guys saw, you know, he uses the rock dust, the compost, and you know, some small amounts of bag products to add fertility to the garden. And you know, one of the main things is about this episode is that he's using the rock dust, and it's not a lot of commercial, you know, large-scale operations like this that are using the rock dust yet, and I believe that needs to change. So we're going to ask him and talk to him about this. So, Josh, why did you decide to start using the rock dust, you know, and getting that into the soil?
Sure. Well, our fertility plan here it's twofold. It's one that I want to grow good crops this year. So I want to make sure that the plants have all the nutrients they need right now so that I can harvest lots of potatoes and tomatoes and do a really good job this season. We're also thinking 5 seasons down the road, 10 seasons down the road, and every time that you grow those crops you have to buy fertilizer every year to make sure that you're feeding the plants, or you're feeding the soil to grow the plants. But with rock dust, you kind of you're playing the long range game, so that you're bringing in more material, this ground fine rock dust, and it's not available right away to the plants. So that's why I think a lot of commercial farmers are apprehensive about spending money on things that aren't going to grow plants right away. It's plants that I want to grow in 5 years and in 10 years that I'm building the soil fertility. I'm filling this gas tank up so that when I want to plant vegetables 10 years from now, that I don't maybe have to buy as much fertilizer in these bags from who knows where, miscellaneous quality, by using rock dust and adding that every year to the soil, that I'm really thinking that in 5-10 years from now I won't have to spend as much in fertilizer.
Right, so he's putting literally money in the bank by banking on the rocks and putting it in the ground. Let's talk about actually the soil fertility here on the property as you got it, because I mean this was used for a farm. And how is the soil here, and is it nutritious or not, and did that play a factor in choosing to use the rock dust?
Certainly. So we took soil tests to get an idea of what sort of minerals do we have in the soil. And some things like calcium, we have lots of it. It's a limestone soil here, but things like potassium and magnesium we're short on. So yeah, I have to fertilize with potassium and magnesium every year, but I'm buying these rock dusts that have potassium, magnesium, a lot of micronutrients in it too that we kind of overlook in commercial agriculture, that are helping build the soil. So yeah, I'm paying attention to specific nutrients in my soil that these rock dusts can add, so that, like I said, 5-10 years down the road, I don't have to input the fertility, that it's right there in the soil. The microbes are going to do the work for me, and I can just put the plants in the ground and hopefully they'll grow.
So I mean, yeah, they look like they're growing great, as you guys saw. And so I want to talk about how you apply the rock dust. So you guys saw in the video that he applies the rock dust actually to the compost that he makes, and then he also adds it in to the soil, as he plants or before he plants. So you want to talk about why you do each of those different ones and why not just one or the other?
Certainly. It's mostly logistics, that I want to get lots of material on the ground. I'm dealing with, we did a calculation, 54 tons of material, wow, which is a huge amount of material. So it's hard to get all that material on the ground this time of year, so we usually spread it in the fall. We add about half of it to our compost that's ready to go into the fields for next year's fertility. Some of the compost isn't quite ready to go at the end of the year, so we add that rock dust right to the compost and basically inoculate that compost where all those microbes are that are breaking down all that organic matter. We throw in some rock dust and they're going to be super happy to get that too, because they're going to be digesting that. We'll spread that the following year, and so all those microbes in the rock dust, well, some of them at least, are going to be more available to the plants. So we need to get some out on the field, and then we want to add some to our compost so that next year when we spread that it's more available to the plants.
That's awesome. So let's talk about, you bought 54 tons of the rock dust. Is that right?
That's about right, yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, the thing is, luckily, where we are here, he has actually local sources of rock dust. Well, actually, he sourced it from rockdustlocal.com. And literally, it's like, what, pennies a pound for the rock dust? So is this a much better, dollar spent for fertilizer than other bag products that may cost, $1, 50 cents, 30 cents a pound?
Yeah, if you're doing your economics over a longer period of time, then certainly the payback it's going to be there because you're spending so little per weight of material compared to a 50-pound bag of fertilizer. What you really need, though, is to pay attention to the soil, because you need that biology in the soil. You need those microbes in the soil, so you need to take care of the soil, because that rock dust will just sit there unless you have the microbes to digest it. So we have to make sure that we're fostering those microbes too. But certainly it's cost effective in the long term.
Yes, I mean, this is on a large scale, obviously, for home gardeners. They're going to buy a 50-pound bag or 35 pounds through the mail. It definitely could get a lot more than pennies a pound. Usually, if you got a mail order, it's maybe around $1 a pound, maybe a little bit less. Josh, another factor you talked about was the microbes. Besides rock dust, microbes are essential to plant life. And how do you encourage the microbial growth in your soil so that the rock dust works efficiently and your plants are able to absorb and get all the nutrients they need?
So we're trying to build organic matter in our soil. So the organic matter is the living, decaying part of the soil that the microbes are feeding on. So you always need to make sure that the microbes are getting fed. We're feeding them our compost, and then we're also keeping the soil covered with cover crops. So we just seeded our fall cover crops, peas and oats, and vetch and rye will go in soon. And so that's going to cover the soil, and as the plants grow above the ground and photosynthesize, the roots below the ground are sloughing off into the soil, feeding the microbes with sugars so that they have something to eat, and it's also covering them. You don't want your microbes in your soil bare and exposed, because nothing in life wants to be so exposed like a desert. You want it to be nice and covered, so you want something green on there all the time.
Awesome. So you talked a little bit earlier about rock dust as a long-term investment, and I know now you've been doing this for about 5 years with the rock dust. So what have you seen as some of the improvements that you've seen just within these 5 years, even maybe before 5 years, maybe even after a year or two? Have you seen any improvements in the crops and the yields and whatever you're growing, and what is it? What's happening?
Certainly. Our yields have gone up. The quality of produce has gone up too. So, we're not just harvesting, like a big head of cabbage. We're harvesting a cabbage that you can put into storage and go back 3 weeks, 4 weeks later and pull it out, and it's still a nice head of cabbage. So it's increasing not only the quantity, the yield, but it's the quality of the produce too that's increasing by, making sure that that plant has all the food that it needs.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, this is what I recommend to you guys, whether you guys are a big market gardener or commercial, farm or just home gardener. I think you all got to get on the rock dust. So, Josh, any last comments that you'd like to share with my viewers today regarding, the farm here, the mission of the farm, how to get more information if they want to come visit you or anything like that?
So yeah, we're at Shelburne Farms in Shelburne, Vermont. We have a website, shelburnefarms.org. And we are a destination for people to, come and visit, to walk around the farm, to take tours of the farm, and we have a lot of educational programs for kids primarily to get them exposed to, a natural environment, an agricultural environment, so they know where their food comes from and they care about that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely encourage you guys and recommend visiting Shelburne Farms here. It's been really fun for me, and especially if you got kids and you live in the area, you want to get them involved in some of the summer classes and programs, because above all else, as much as I teach, adults these topics, the kids really need to learn where food comes from. It comes from Mother Earth. It comes from the ground. It doesn't come from the grocery store. It doesn't come in packages, right? And we need to eat more fruits and vegetables. So anyways, I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, hey, please give me a thumbs up to let me know. Maybe I'll try to come back to Shelburne Farms next time I'm actually in town visiting. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below. I have over 1,100 videos, and I'm coming out with new videos all the time on topics so that you guys could grow food more effectively and grow higher quality food for you and your family. And be sure to check my past episodes. I have a wealth of knowledge contained in all my episodes, and I like to visit farms and show you guys different ways of doing things. And hopefully, after watching this video, you've learned a lot of new ways to improve the health of you and your family, as well as the crops, by using the rock dust. Once again, my name is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep on growing. All right, this is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. What I'm going to do today for you guys is the top 5 ways to save water in your container garden. Now, I always encourage you guys to grow in raised beds, and that's what I do in the majority of